The last warning, a woman's voice hissed into the receiver. It's going to get worse. The call ended abruptly. Kat felt a chill run down her spine as she tried to place the voice, but nothing came to mind. Exhausted, she sank onto the couch, her thoughts a tangled mess. She had no idea how to escape this situation. Who could she confide in? Her friends would label her foolish, and her husband would leave her without a second thought. How would she survive then? What would she live on? The front door slammed shut, and Kat forced a smile as her husband walked in. "Hi, you're home early. Did something happen? Am I not allowed to come home anymore?" His sharp tone made her flinch. A wave of anxiety washed over her. What if he knew everything? "I'm just glad you're home early," she lied. "But dinner isn't ready yet." "What have you been doing all day?" "You're on vacation. You could have cleaned the house and made something decent to eat." "I'm tired of all this processed food." "Are you having issues at work?" "What does that have to do with you? Just warm up something." He dropped into a chair, and Kat quickly put a cup of soup from 2 days ago into the microwave. Should I tell him? Kat wondered. It might lighten the load. He might leave me, but at least I could file a report and find some peace. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, Tom's phone rang, and he retreated into the other room. "I'm busy," he called back. "And the soup." "Eat your own soup," he snapped before leaving the house. How can I tell him when he's like this? What if he's dealing with his own issues? When he calms down, maybe I'll find a way to explain. Maybe he'll understand. Tom returned only late in the evening. Kat had made an effort to cook, but he didn't even touch the meal. "Where were you?" she asked quietly. "None of your business. I'm going to bed," he replied, dismissing her with a wave. As Tom disappeared into the bathroom, Kat felt the tears welling up. Just then, her phone rang, cutting through the silence. "Did you make the meal?" "I don't have that much. You have 2 days left. Do you want your husband to find out everything? Put the house up for bail." Short beeps echoed in her ear before the line went dead. In a fit of frustration, Kat hurled the phone against the wall, where it hit and fell to the floor with a dull thud. The screen flickered one last time before going dark. "Hello, Jessica. Are you here to see us?" The doorbell rang early the next morning, pulling Kat from her restless sleep. She opened the door to find her mother-in-law standing on the threshold. "No, I've got the wrong house," she grumbled, pushing her way inside. "I came to see you. At least I'll get to see my son." "Come in," Kat muttered, still groggy. "I can manage without your help," her mother-in-law retorted. What did she want at this hour? Did Tom really invite her over? With a suitcase? Great, just what I need. Kat thought bitterly. "You have a lovely home," her mother-in-law remarked dreamily as she inspected the new renovations. "He didn't even invite you, and they've managed to change everything here." "Yeah," Tom replied with a smile, clearly pleased with her approval. "The house is spacious enough, so there's room for me too," she winked at Tom, who nodded in agreement. "Of course, Mom, pick any room. It seems we won't have kids for a while. Besides, Kat, well, no one will mind you keeping an eye on her." "Is something wrong?" his mother asked, her tone shifting. "She's a bit off," Tom admitted reluctantly. "On vacation, and she can't even manage to clean. Don't get me started on cooking." "I didn't plan to stay, of course, but I'll stick around for a couple of days. Just passing through. I'll change my ticket later. Don't worry, we'll teach Kat how to clean and cook." Tom merely brushed it aside. Why teach her? She was an adult, independent, she should be able to manage on her own. His irritation grew. Kat overheard their conversation, but chose not to intervene. For now, she'd have to keep her head down for a couple of days. Her mother-in-law was relatively easygoing, usually keeping her distance and not asking too many questions. "Jessica, how are you?" Kat attempted to strike up a conversation, but her mother-in-law wasn't having it. "I'm fine. You should tell me what's wrong with your family." "Everything's fine. It's just that Tom wants kids, and I." The idea popped into Kat's head suddenly, and with no other options for help, she decided to take a risk. "I want to surprise Tom." Kat smiled broadly, sensing that Jessica was unaware of the family's underlying issues. It was worth a shot. "I found a clinic," she continued. "It's quite expensive, but I don't want Tom to find out. He's against that sort of thing. But you and I won't tell anyone, right? You've always wanted grandchildren, especially after that tragedy." Kat knew how to hit the right note. Tom had a sister who tragically died in an accident when she was only 3 years old. "I really want a girl. Let's call her Olivia. We've even discussed it," Kat added. Jessica burst into tears and hugged Kat tightly. "You're doing the right thing. I won't breathe a word, I promise. But it costs a lot. This procedure isn't cheap." "How much?" Kat named the figure she needed to settle her debts and pay off the extortionists. After that, she thought she could figure things out. It's not the first time. "I'll come by tomorrow with the money," Jessica agreed, quickly preparing to leave. "At least you'll be useful," Kat muttered to herself, digging an old phone out of her purse. As soon as she inserted the SIM card, it rang. "Decided to change your number?" "No way," the voice on the other end said. "It'll all be tomorrow," Kat quickly replied before hanging up. How did they get her new number? This SIM card belonged to her husband, which meant they weren't lying, and her fears were well-founded. Kat had come from a small provincial town to Moscow, enrolled in the university, and met Tom there. The ambitious young man was already making waves, and Kat had latched onto him. She'd always dreamed of a prosperous family and a home of her own. Tom provided everything, albeit gradually. They had it all: cars, a house, and a steady income. Kat worked too, but her earnings were minimal. She couldn't leave him. Their marriage contract was expertly crafted. Each spouse kept what they earned, and Kat had barely earned anything. Maybe 1/10 of the house belonged to her. Every time she tried to carve out a career for herself, she found herself trapped. Tom, Jessica decided to ask her son for money. She didn't have that much herself. Where would a pensioner get such funds? "I need money." She approached him at work, ignoring how he reacted and how his colleagues looked on. "How much?" he asked calmly, pulling out his phone to access his banking app. "I'll transfer it now. You shouldn't have come to my office for such a small amount." Jessica stated the sum she needed, and Tom immediately tucked his phone away. "What's it for?" "Do I need to tell you here?" she replied, raising her voice. Nikita took her by the arm and led her to a nearby cafe. Once seated, she began to explain. "I know why things are rocky between you and Kat. You need a child." "Not this again, Mom. We don't want kids." "We need it. We really do. Trust me on this." "Okay, enough." Tom interrupted her sharply. "Did Kat tell you something?" "Kat's asking for money, talking about a baby." Tom nodded. "And you promised her. You came to me." He laughed. "Well, she's clever. She wants to squeeze more money from me before the divorce." "What divorce?" "Mom, things have been bad for a long time. Really bad. There's no way we're having kids. But I have an idea." The next day, Jessica approached Kat when Tom was out and handed her a piece of paper. "What is this, Jessica?" Kat asked, surprised by her mother-in-law's unexpected thoughtfulness. "This is a contract. I'm lending you the money. Once everything works out, or doesn't, we'll tell Tom, and he'll pay me back. In the meantime, sign this paper stating that if anything goes wrong, you'll give me a share of the house." Kat read the document in silence. Jessica had clearly consulted a skilled lawyer. The contract was well drafted, even detailing her share, which seemed to have come from nowhere. "What's going on?" she thought. "I'll just sign it. I'll figure something out for Tom later. The important thing is that he doesn't find out about this." She signed the document and received the funds. Just as the money arrived in her account, her phone rang. "I'm listening. I expect you with the money tomorrow. A loan. You'll get the coordinates via SMS. And while you were thinking, the amount has gone up. I don't have that much." "That's not my problem." The line went dead, leaving only short beeps in her ear. Kat glanced at the amount in dismay. It was just enough to pay off the extortionists. "Never mind, I'll come up with something later. The main thing is to resolve this issue now." With a sigh of relief, Kat thought it would all be over by tomorrow. That evening, Tom came home in a foul mood. He exchanged a few words with his mother before crashing on the couch, falling asleep almost instantly. Kat decided to let him be, thinking she'd talk to him tomorrow when she felt less guilty. The next day, she stood nervously in the park, holding the envelope with the necessary funds. 15 minutes ticked by and no one approached. Anxiety churned in her stomach. "I should have gone to the police. None of this would have happened," she thought. "I've brought this trouble upon myself. The main thing is to keep my husband. Otherwise, my comfortable life is over." Just then, a girl walked up, snatched the envelope from her hands, and vanished. Kat exhaled in relief. That's it, it's finally over. On her way home, she stopped at a pastry shop and bought a small cake. "We need to celebrate." It felt like I was in a thriller, like a ransom or a bribe, she laughed to herself. When she got home, Tom was already there. "Hi, I'm so glad you're home. I bought us a cake," she said cheerfully. "What's this?" he asked, holding out an envelope filled with photos of Kat and a supposed businessman. Let me explain," she said, her voice trembling. "Well, go ahead," he challenged. Kat began her story hesitantly. "I wanted to find a better job with higher pay. That's when I met Leo. He promised me a good position and even looked over my resume. Then he suggested we meet. That's how it all started." "That's it?" Tom asked. "No, there's more. He said he'd take me on as a partner since I was no longer a stranger to him. But to do that, I needed to invest money, so I took out a loan," Kat said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I ended up taking out several loans, quitting my job, and paying the rent for the office where the company was supposed to open. But then Leo just vanished. And you thought you could deceive me? I wanted to save our family. I'm sorry," Kat sobbed. "I just wanted a normal job. Let me tell you a secret. You don't need to sleep with anyone to get a normal job. Tom, please forgive me. I only love you. I made a mistake. Everyone does. This is a divorce application. I don't think I need to explain anything else. Your things are packed in suitcases. Don't worry, I didn't take anything for myself. And remember, you still need to transfer your share of the house to my mother." Kat took her suitcase and walked out. There was no point in arguing with him. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. She had gotten herself into trouble with a con artist and had betrayed her husband. Now she was left with nothing. So did it work out? Tom asked Lena, who immediately inquired about the situation. "It worked out. Your idea was brilliant," he laughed. "She lost everything. But honestly, she brought it on herself. If she had just reported that gigolo, maybe something could have been salvaged. But now, she deceived me first, and you're quite clever. You not only took pictures, but also helped me get rid of her. What Tom didn't realize was that Lena had her own plans for him, and had split the loans Kat had taken out with Leo in half. He was heading for a similarly grim future. Meanwhile, Kat returned to her hometown, found a job at a small company, filed for bankruptcy, and eventually married for love. She learned her lessons and never repeated her past mistakes. Tom, on the other hand, trusted his new wife so completely that he forgot about the marriage contract and lost everything in their divorce a few years later. Life has a way of balancing the scales. It just takes time. Jessica remembered Kat, but in the grand scheme of things, who really cared anymore?